Welcome everybody to the next installment of the New Hampshire Realtors Digital Crossfire series. This video is the second installment in our three-part series on solar panels and their impact on the industry. Today the topic is going to be solar panel leasing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today I have with me Craig Foley. He is the founder of Sustainable Real Estate Consulting Services. He's also the winner of the 2013 NHAR Evergreen Award. Craig, thank you so much for taking your time and helping our audience. There has been lots of reports in the press and even Attorney General's office investigations regarding solar companies leasing panels to homeowners. Can you walk us through both the good, the bad, and the ugly of solar panels, so what realtors and consumers need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a critical issue right now. Before I do that, let me just give you how quickly this market emerged in Massachusetts, and what I think every state is going to have to start expecting. In Massachusetts, we passed Green Communities Act in 2009. We had 2 to 3 megawatts of installed solar PV in the entire state at that point. We created a goal to get to 400 megawatts of installed solar PV by 2017, significant jump in power. Nobody thought we were going to get to that goal. We reached it by May 2013.
Wow.
We then set a new target for 1,600 megawatts by 2020. We reached that earlier in 2016 already. So this is a rapidly expanding marketplace, very important for everybody to start to get a handle on.
And do you have some sense about how much of this expansion is due to host-owned solar PV versus leased PV?
Absolutely.
Is there data on that?
Absolutely there is. And we're seeing homeowners, which I think is good overall if all things were being equal. Not that all leases are bad or leases are bad in general, but I would much rather see a homeowner own the system. It'd be a host-owned system rather than a third-party owned system, a TPO system. So a third-party owned is where you get a lease from probably a solar installer or a power purchase agreement. And what I fear about is that there's fear in the marketplace, certainly in Massachusetts, and understandable why, that there's problems with the lease agreements at the point of sale. So unfortunately, what I see happening is many realtors automatically say that all leases of solar PV are bad. That's not necessarily true. Really that's in the dynamics of the power purchase agreement, the agreement between the solar PV provider and the owner, or the owner of the home, or the new buyer of the home. Power purchase agreements are like offers, right? Some of them are good, some of them are bad, depending on the details of the PPA. So that's one element of a lease that's really important in terms of understanding the dynamics of it. Let's get out of the habit of saying automatically all leases are bad. Now the problem though with leases that we're finding, we have 450 solar companies in Massachusetts now in this rapidly expanding marketplace. And what happens is when you enter that lease agreement, the solar installer puts a UCC filing on the property subordinated under the mortgage for the home.
And for the audience, that means that there is actually a lien placed on your property that the solar provider does to secure payment of their obligations.
Right. And actually, the solar PV providers will argue that it's not a lien, but it is an encumbrance on title, no matter what it is. There's no question about that. And so the problem we've run into in Massachusetts and some of the deals that we've been dealing with is that the solar provider doesn't get how important it is at the closing to pull that UCC filing and re-subordinate it under the new loan. That can delay a closing, and we know now that closings have to be delayed by at least 3 business days.
Right, under the new rules.
Right, and if they get delayed by 2 weeks or a month, or the deal doesn't close because the solar provider's not paying attention to what they should be paying attention to, that can be a real problem in the transaction and something that we need to tackle in Massachusetts. There's no question about it.
Do you anticipate a shakeout in the industry? You indicated there's 450 providers.
Yeah.
My guess is 5 years from now, there won't be 450 providers. Is that a concern?
Yeah, I think the 450 providers at that point will have moved up to New Hampshire to take advantage of this marketplace, yeah.
Very
so.
well could.
But yeah, there's definitely a shakeout. And one of the things, that you have to be careful about with power purchase agreements as an attorney or as a buyer's agent representing your client is make sure that client is following through on the power purchase agreement and making sure the inverter manufacturer is still in business. Because that's one place that we're finding that, that the rollout in the marketplace is really happening. So you want that inverter warranty to be still binding to someone.
And have you heard of stories of any transferability issues, or is ultimately more of a paperwork challenge than a substantive one?
There can be, certainly. I mean, and that will be kind of laid out in a good power purchase agreement, where they will lay out a FICO score, a minimum FICO score, for the purchaser. So, could their FICO score be at the time that they sign the purchase and sales above that number, and something happens where they buy some new appliances for their new home and that FICO score drops down before the closing? Absolutely. There are a lot of issues with that we're kind of used to dealing with on some level, but stuff that you have to really pay attention to in that power purchase agreement. No question about it.
Any other red flags that you've come across in Massachusetts to pass along to?
Absolutely. So the other big one, in a power purchase agreement, you're agreeing to a price per kilowatt to pay the installer on a yearly basis. There's an escalation clause in there, so that might go up 2 to 3% a year. But we have a lot of volatility in New England in terms of power prices, right? Sure. We're getting winter price spikes. So we have seen times in Massachusetts, if people were installing at the big price spike 2 years ago, that the power purchase agreement price per kilowatt hour could be higher than the price per kilowatt hour that the utility is currently offering. So that's obviously a negative,
Correct.
But we're getting all of these spikes up and down, and one argument could be that despite the fact that it could be higher now, the fact that there's a consistent pricing can help budget your home much more better on some level, But that's something you need to pay attention to.
Great information, and just on my behalf, I just remind all of the realtors, please, if you're dealing in this situation and there are power purchase agreement, lease agreements, please make sure that your buyer client has them reviewed by an attorney who understands the industry, so that you are not giving them legal advice about the terms and scope of these agreements, and that they're getting professional advice on these issues.
And listing agents, upload it into the MLS so we can see it before we go to the property.
Great idea. Thanks so much. Thank you, Craig.